Welcome to another episode of the Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. I'm Derek Tate alongside Jay Pfeiffer as we are heading into AFC and NFC Conference Championship weekend. So we got a lot to discuss. How's it going over there in Chicago, Jay?
Well, it's cold. We're supposedly going to get some snow here, I think, at some point this weekend, but it's okay. We got some football to discuss. We had some divisional round matchups we got to dissect, and, of course, we're going to get in the championship weekend, so let's do it.
So we've got a lot to dive into, but let's go ahead and go over the week that was for the divisional round playoffs real quick to just kind of discuss how we arrived here. And last week we talked about our predictions for the divisional round slate of games. A couple surprises, but for the most part, the home teams handled business. But the Tennessee Titans upset Lamar Jackson, and it feels like it's been like 2 weeks ago that this happened because
it does, doesn't it?
Saturday night. It feels like it's been a long time, but we won't focus too much. I mean, again, we got the Tennessee Titans facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs this upcoming weekend. But the Tennessee Titans, the reason why I want to bring up last week is because this Road Warrior team has gone on the road in consecutive weeks and knocked off not only the eventual NFL MVP for the 2019 season in Lamar Jackson, but also the defending Super Bowl champion, New England Patriots. So they're about to go into Arrowhead, but give me your thoughts on how the Titans came into Baltimore and knocked off the top-seeded Ravens.
Well, for me, it was all about confidence, Derek, and we talked about this after, last week after they defeated the Patriots. I said it. I said the Titans will be going into Baltimore with all the confidence in the world after just dethroning the defending champion Patriots. And you saw that pretty much from the outset once again, that Tennessee, they knew exactly what they wanted to do in this game, Derek. They stuck to their script, basically a carbon copy of last week, right? Get Derrick Henry going early. Do not ask Ryan Tannehill to do too much. I think he was under 100 yards again, I think, in this game. But he made a big throws when he had to. And confused Lamar Jackson enough to where they had to get them playing from behind. I believe one of us made this point last week. If you could get Baltimore playing from behind, the feeling was that they could be in trouble. And before you knew it, it was 28-6 and 21-6 or something like that at halftime. And the Tennessee Titans were literally and figuratively running away with this thing.
Derrick Henry, I mean, if you're handing out MVP awards for most valuable player in the postseason, it's Derrick Henry in a landslide through the first 2 weeks of the postseason. But
yep.
Lamar Jackson, I hate how, and I don't want to spend too much time about Lamar Jackson because the Ravens are no longer in the playoffs.
Right.
But boy, I hate how people are just all of a sudden just slamming Lamar Jackson. Yeah. I think it's very, very, very unfair criticism. I mean, granted, he made mistakes. He did turn the ball over three times.
Yes.
2 interceptions, 1 fumble lost, and he only generated 12 points. But, I mean, you saw outside of Derrick Henry, he looked like the best football player on the field, willing his team. In fact, if a couple things go differently, this football team probably gets back into this football game despite falling behind early on. I mean, they failed to convert on 2 4th and 1s. Lamar Jackson, I mean, yeah, he did turn over the ball 3 times, but he generated over 500 yards of total offense on his own. I mean, I just think that people are being a little bit too hard on Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I completely agree with that. And, one of the keys was to stop, maybe not stop Lamar's rushing game, but stop the rushing game, at least contain it, period. And they did that with Mark Ingram. You saw that he probably wasn't 100% healthy in this game. Tennessee completely took advantage of that. And once again, it was a ball control offense, and they beat the Baltimore Ravens. It looked like the records coming into the games were reversed, right? If that makes any sense. Tennessee looked like the team that was 14-2 or whatever the Baltimore's record was, and Baltimore looked like the wild card team. And again, you got to give credit to Mike Vrabel, the coaching staff of the Tennessee Titans, and for instilling such a confidence in this group, especially defensively, because one thing that they don't do, and it's obviously something that Mike Vrabel got from the Bill Belichick sort of tree, right, was that they do not beat themselves on defense and they do their jobs. Now, granted, they gave up a ton of yards, right? But did they score? They bend, but they didn't break. And again, this is one of the reasons why, Tennessee, they were the hotter team in the league. They were the hotter team. They had been playing better football. And for me, it's not surprising at all that this turned out this way. Now, for me, Lamar Jackson, he'll be back.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with you. They're slamming him way too much. It definitely was not all his fault.
No, if I remember correctly, I saw plenty of passes that were going right through the hands of Baltimore pass catchers in the first half when this was still a game. I mean, even that Mark Andrews interception on the first drive.
Tip ball could have been caught.
It was a little high. I mean, it was
an
inaccurate throw to an extent, but still a catchable pass. And sometimes the ball just literally does not bounce your way.
Right.
But we're moving on for the Tennessee Titans, and they're going to be on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. And now, one thing I can say is you looked at the two teams that were hosting AFC playoff games this past week, in the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs, and they both fell behind early. But you saw one quarterback begin to press, begin to make a couple mistakes here and there that ended up costing them the football game in some way, shape, or form. But then on the other side, you saw Patrick Mahomes, who it was his receivers who had a case of the dropsies in the first quarter. Travis Kelce dropped a 3rd and 6 wide open that would have kept the drive alive. Instead, they get a blocked punt on the very next play that turns into a touchdown. And before they know it, they blink and they're down 24-0. But Patrick Mahomes, that's a bad man.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, that man looked unflappable being down 24 points after essentially one quarter of football. And he was damn near perfect.
Yeah, so again, I don't want to be the homer here, Derek, but both of those quarterbacks could have been in a Chicago Bears uniform. So I just want to put that out there. I just want to put that. I can't.
You're torturing yourself.
I can't do it. But it's now. Let me turn this around back on you before I sort of get to my take on the game. When Kansas City went down 24-0, what were your initial thoughts on that outcome? I mean, granted, it was certainly still early in the game. But sort of what were your thoughts, of how the game could have went from that point on before everything happened?
So before the Chiefs went on a 51-7 run.
Right, exactly.
I saw that Mahomes was playing good football. He was the one thing that was – I was looking at this and I'm like, people are going to slam Mahomes if the Chiefs come out and get beat by the Texans at home, and he's a one and done in this postseason after losing in the AFC Championship game last year to New England. I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, they're going to slam not only Lamar Jackson, but now Patrick Mahomes. And from what I saw, Mahomes was playing a fantastic football game. His teammates, Demarcus Robinson and Travis Kelce in particular, on those first couple of drives came up a bit short. But what I saw, though, was that the writing was on the wall that this Kansas City offense is going to be able to put up points. And the Texans better keep scoring, because I don't think that they have an answer for Patrick Mahomes, and that man is going to keep firing away. And then once, lo and behold, it's almost as if they sensed it too, because Bill O'Brien was actually going to go for it on 4th and 1.
Yep.
Instead, they don't have the play call in time. They take a timeout because the play clock is running down. And then Bill O'Brien, went against what he's done for most of his coaching tenure there at Houston. And he plays it conservative.
Yep.
And he takes a field goal, and then Chiefs score. Texans get the ball back. Then the ill-advised fake punt, by the way.
Yep.
Not that it really mattered, because Mahomes, as you saw, was just putting the ball wherever he wanted to, and Texans had no answer. But that was inexplicable to me. That before I saw that, I still thought the Chiefs had a chance, despite being down 24-0 is what I was getting at.
So this is why I sort of asked you this, right? Because you texted me during the game, and you pretty much said the exact same thing. They were down 24-0. Mahomes hasn't done a single thing wrong, right? And I can't remember exactly what I texted you back, but that's when you told me that there was a few moments in the game where I missed. I missed the fake punt. So when I saw that text, when you texted me back, I got back to the game and I'm like, what the hell just happened? And lo and behold, the Texans go on an infinity number run to 7, or excuse me, the Chiefs do. Sorry about that. And if you would have told me that result would have ended up like that, I probably would have asked you what you were smoking, but when I look back at the game and I rewatch it, it probably would have happened whether the Houston Texans kept scoring or not. There probably would have been somewhere close to 90, 100 points in this game. And Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback on the planet right now. He proved it once again. I think was it eight straight drives that they scored, or seven straight drives. Sorry,
a touchdown. Yeah,
I've got my math wrong. 7 straight drives that they scored a touchdown on. It's unbelievable. He's making this look like a video game out there. I've never quite seen a quarterback. The only comparison I can make, and I hate that I'm even making this comparison, being a Bears fan, but is to Aaron Rodgers, is that Patrick Mahomes has the ability to start throwing the ball before. Now we talk about anticipation, right? When we talk about quarterbacks, but it's different with him. He not only throws his receivers open, but he puts them in literally almost a perfect spot in every case.
Right.
And I've never quite seen ability like that from a quarterback. It amazes me. Bill O'Brien, I don't think anybody would have been able to stop Kansas City, particularly on that day. But like you said, that fake punt is inexcusable. You don't continue to hand them the momentum, even though they may have been starting to garner it in the first place.
Right.
You just don't make it simple. And that's where Bill O'Brien is a complete goofball for that. I've had my doubts about him being a head coach of the Texans for a couple of years now. He has not fixed his offensive line. Once again, Deshaun Watson, when he needs protection, is most of the time running for his life. And we'll see what happens from there. I know he's got, Watson's backing, but I think I need to move on from Bill O'Brien. But this was more about the Chiefs and the onslaught, juggernaut, whatever you want to call it, the mission that they're on. And I think people forget that Kansas City probably would have been the number 1 seed had Patrick Mahomes not going down for a couple of weeks this year. It's conceivable to say, we don't know what happened, but clearly the best team in the AFC is probably Kansas City.
Well, you can make the argument that they're the best one left.
Right.
And they certainly have the advantage of being at Arrowhead for a second consecutive year in the AFC Championship game. I mean, in particular, though, I don't want to take anything away from Andy Reid either, because Andy Reid kept they knew, and he knew, that the Texans had zero answer for Travis Kelce.
Right.
And even, by the way, I love Tony Romo. I love watching a game where Tony Romo is the color analyst.
Oh, he's great.
Oh, man. Because he's sitting there saying, look, you got to do something different to try to slow him down. Mahomes, if you're just going to sit back in man coverage and only rush 4, Mahomes is going to dice you up. And you have to do something to get them to go away from Travis Kelce. But the thing that was concerning is that they started to double Travis Kelce, and they still couldn't stop him. And once you saw that writing on the wall, that it's almost like a boulder being pushed downhill.
Yeah.
You saw that momentum, and you just knew that the Texans had no way to be able to stop it. It's almost like Mahomes spotted his little brother 24 points in a game of Madden, and he knows he's going to come back and kick his ass anyway. And that's exactly what he did. 51 points after being down 24-0. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable performance. And once again, he's making the game look super easy. And I've never quite seen a talent like that. Of course, it's just wishful thinking on my part, but I'm uber jealous here in Chicago, but it's certainly fun to watch him play.
So let's go ahead and focus on this AFC Championship game, though, because it's a rematch of some sorts. Now, Kansas City and the Tennessee Titans did face off back on November 10th, but it was in Tennessee, so it's a little bit different setting. 35-32, Titans won. I mean, Mahomes still threw for 446 and 3 touchdowns in that game. And I don't even know if he was one. I think he was just coming back from his kneecap injury. Who knows if he was even 100% healthy, but
right.
The point is, the Titans, though, Tannehill, clean game, 181, 2 scores through the air, and Derrick Henry, I mean, maybe this is writing on the wall because he dropped 188 yards on the ground along with 2 rushing scores in this game as well. And if there's one place you can attack this Kansas City defense, it's being able to jam the ball right down their throat, and no one's been better at that this entire postseason than the Titans, and of course with Derrick Henry running the football. So I'm asking you, how do you see this AFC Championship game playing out?
The only way Tennessee has a chance is to do exactly what they've been doing in these playoffs. If they deviate even one bit or try to get into a shootout with Kansas City, they're going to get blown out. It's as simple as that. They have to keep away from Patrick Mahomes. Now, I don't know if that's going to work, Tater, but they have to do exactly what they've been doing in these playoffs. They have to get up early. They have to hit Kansas City in the mouth. They have to get Derrick Henry rolling. Like you said, if there is one susceptible part of the Kansas City defense, it is in their run stoppage, and they're a little suspect, but they have to just continue to script. Now, time of possession, going to be key. Turnovers, going to be key. So far, so good for the Tennessee Titans, though, right? So if they continue to do exactly what they've been doing, they're going to have a chance in this game. Even having said all of that, I just don't know if it's going to be enough. Kansas City has so many weapons on offense, man. And even though Tennessee has been playing lights out defensively, I just don't know if they're going to have the personnel to cover everybody. And Patrick Mahomes has been a master at pinpointing weaknesses in your defense, in your secondary, and just carving you up. So I think Tennessee can hang around, but I just also believe that it's probably Kansas City's time to shine here.
So the one thing I will go ahead and say is that we saw last week the writing on the wall when it came to the Titans defense giving up yardage. 500 total yards of offense just from Lamar Jackson alone.
Right.
And obviously, I don't expect Mahomes to run for over 100 yards, similar to what Lamar did, but I do expect him, if he threw for 400 yards earlier this season, and you're not going to be able to sit in zone.
No. Because
Mahomes will just torch you with the weapons at his disposal. And I don't think he's going to make the mistakes that Lamar Jackson made. Personally, I think he's a better pure quarterback than Lamar. It's no disrespect.
Oh, yeah.
Lamar is the MVP this year. But as far as a pure quarterback goes and being able to put that ball wherever he wants to, whenever he wants to, that's Mahomes. So I do expect the Titans, though, who have come out in consecutive weeks, and Vrabel, who is a descendant of that Bill Belichick coaching scheme, I expect them to come out and hit Mahomes with a couple different looks that's going to potentially get them off to a slow start, because that's the only way you have a chance is if you get Mahomes off to a slow start, similar to how the Texans did. The one thing that the Texans couldn't do that the Titans can is if they get a multi-score lead, they have that beast, Derrick Henry, that they're going to just start leaning on you, and just you're going to have to stop Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry with a lead with the Titans this postseason has been an unstoppable force. That being said, I do not think and it makes it sound anticlimactic, but I don't think the Titans are going to have enough to be able to slow down Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, and even Damian Williams, who had a nice game this past week against the Texans. I do think.
I forget Mecole Hardman as well. I mean, he's averaging almost like 20 yards of reception. That's ridiculous.
I mean, then you throw in a former top 10 pick and Sammy Watkins, who's also at his disposal. Yeah. So, I just think ultimately it's in the Chiefs' defense is good enough if they get a lead and they can then pressure Ryan Tannehill and get after the quarterback. That's the formula that I see playing out in this game. I do think that the Chiefs win. I think it's a close game, but I think that they win by 10 points. I'm going to call it a 10-point game. I'm going to call it 38-28.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the 28-20 range myself. I was thinking somewhere within 7 to 10 points. Again, I just don't see Tennessee allowing Kansas City to score 50 points on them. No. But yeah, once again, and it's no disrespect to Tennessee, but just Kansas, they're an onslaught. They're a juggernaut. Like you said, it's the boulder going downhill. I just don't know over the course of a 60-minute game that they're going to have enough to stop it.
So on the other side, we got Fridley Jimenez joining us live. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, what's going on, Fridley?
And he's got the Titans and the 49ers going to the Super Bowl. So he's got the Titans with the upset on the road. But that brings us to the NFC side of things, where we've got the Green Bay Packers facing off against the San Francisco 49ers. And this time it is a rematch of sorts, as back on November 24th, the Green Bay Packers went to San Francisco and got their tails handed to them. They got banked 37-8 as the 49ers just put it on Aaron Rodgers, and Green Bay had no answer. So what's going to be different this time? I mean, we can go back and take a look at the past week. I mean, we saw the Green Bay Packers able to hold off Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. And then we saw the 49ers look dominant against the Minnesota Vikings. So if you want to touch on the two games from this past weekend, of course, feel free to. But how do you see this NFC Championship game playing out?
Well, yeah. Well, let's briefly touch on the divisional rounds at first. So for me, I texted you as well. I was completely wrong on the Minnesota Niners game. I thought Minnesota had enough momentum to pull off an upset. Completely wrong on that. Kirk Cousins reverted to looking more like Kirk Cousins, but I will say that the Niners front seven and that pass rush had a lot to do with that. They were able to bottle up Dalvin Cook early, didn't allow him to get going at all, and just basically made Kirk Cousins beat him. And that's not the formula. That's not winning formula for Vikings football. So I know a lot of people, excuse me, are kind of happy to see Kevin Stefanski leave because they thought they didn't give Dalvin Cook the ball enough in that game. But I digress a little bit. I don't know if there's anything they would have been able to do. Again, the Niners were clearly the superior team there. And in Green Bay, I was kind of right on the money with that. The Green Bay won that game. The only surprising fashion in that game that I took away from it was that they were able to jump out to such an early big lead. I thought it would be close throughout, within a one-score game because that's the type of game Green Bay has played all year. They have not blown anybody out the entire year. So, although I thought they would win, and Aaron Rodgers is happy because he's got Devontae Adams healthy, and that's where it boils down to that for me. And if he's healthy going into which he is going into this NFC Championship, how these rematches tend to go, man. In sports, we were talking about this the other day, of course, on my radio show, but these rematches sometimes, especially in football, especially in the playoffs, you throw that first game out the window. If you're San Francisco, I'm not even looking at any of that tape. I'm coming in with a fresh mindset, and the same thing for Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers has got revenge on his mind. He's going back home. He said it himself. He doesn't see too many more years on the horizon for him. He's getting up there in age. He wants to make another Super Bowl appearance. I think Green Bay pulls off a close victory in this one. I don't even want to put a score on it. I think it's so close, but I do not even for a bit think it's going to go the way it did in that first meeting.
Okay, fair enough. So the way I'm going to be kind of dissecting this is I am going to look at that tape from last game because, and I'm not saying history repeats itself because certainly every game has its own flow, its own circumstances, et cetera, et cetera. However, we saw, I personally think that the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers are built very similarly this season.
Okay.
As far as their success stems from being able to run the football and play action off of it. And what we saw last week was that Dalvin Cook, who I think is a little bit better version of Aaron Jones, was absolutely shut down. And you can go ahead and give Stefanski a hard time, but there was nowhere to run the football. That Niners defensive unit up front just dominated the Minnesota Vikings. And they did the same exact thing against the Green Bay Packers unit up front and bottled up Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones averaged less than 3 yards per carry in their first matchup. So if you're telling me that Aaron Jones is not going to be able to get going, now, again, we don't know until we find out on Sunday.
Right.
But from what I saw, they are not going to be able to handle that unit up front for the 49ers. So you're going to be playing from behind the sticks. And one thing that I really was impressed by when I was taking a look at the tape, Jay, of this matchup back on November 24th.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Salah did a fantastic job of disguising his coverages to confuse Aaron Rodgers pre-snap. So on multiple occasions, they were able to disguise coverages to the point where Aaron Rodgers, he was kind of second-guessing himself out there, holding the ball a little bit longer. Not to mention, a lot of times they were bracketing Devontae Adams,
right?
Which that's exactly what is going to happen on Sunday. They are going to make someone else have to beat them in the passing game. And if you're going to fall behind the sticks on get like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10 on a regular basis against this pass rush, that is a recipe for disaster. So the Packers offense, I think that they are going to continue to struggle. I hate to say it because I do want to see Aaron Rodgers because I agree with you. I don't think that he has another 5 years left in him. I think he's probably got another 3-4 seasons tops.
Right.
Not that he still can't play. He can still ball, but I just don't know. I feel like the end is on the horizon. But on the other end for the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan's the best play caller in all of football. And I think he's just going to keep that Green Bay defense, which has been hit or miss this season, off balance. And the big matchup that I see the 49ers exploiting is Traymon Williams on the defensive side of the football. You know, veteran nickel cornerback that plays in the slot quite a bit. We saw Deebo Samuel torch him back on that matchup a couple, back in the regular season. So play action, three-headed monster at running back, Shanahan, a gifted play caller, and they don't have an answer for George Kittle. So I do think the 49ers win, and I think it's going to be an ugly game for the Packers, an ugly end of the season. I tip the hat, though. You're going with the upset.
Yeah, I've seen, we both of us, we've seen a lot of football to know that, again, when you get a rematch, they just don't tend to go the same way. And that's no, disrespect to the 49ers, because they've had an amazing season. And I think this is going to be a really good game. But I just got a funny feeling about it. And, usually my funny feelings are pretty much always wrong. But it's again, and I hate that I'm, having to say this because it means watching the Green Bay Packers in another Super Bowl. But there's something about just this particular game, on this particular matchup, on this particular day that gives me cause to pause about the 49ers. And again, I could be completely wrong, because I agree with you that one thing that probably Green Bay is going to have the most trouble with is, picking up those coverages, picking up, if it's zone or if they're going to come with a late blitz, or what the front seven is doing, if they're showing blitz and dropping back, or, if they're doing any type of unusual things up front in that front four, which is, full of first-round picks, by the way. They're going to have their hands full. But I think Aaron Rodgers can have an answer for it, whether it's, the quick pass on the outs to Aaron Jones or Williams, or whether somebody that we didn't think of in the passing game can step up. You mentioned Valdez-Scantling the other day, Geronimo Allison. I mean,
Alan Lazard, Jake Kumerow, somebody.
It's going to have to be somebody. So it's going to be an interesting game to watch. I really do. But I'm going with the slight upset here, and I think it's probably going to be within 3 points.
So I will say this. The one advantage when you look at these two teams and their rosters side by side, right? You start looking at who has the advantage where. I do think the Green Bay Packers have the best running back in this game, right, in Aaron Jones. But outside of that, I think the only other place where they have an advantage is at quarterback. And the one thing that in moments like this that can be a trump card, and it almost happened to the Green Bay Packers last week when Russell Wilson was just great down the stretch. The one thing that can change the flow of a game is a great quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers, if the ball is in his hands and it's a one-possession game late, we saw it last week where he put the game away with two fantastic throws. That first one on 3rd and 9, it was to Devontae Adams on the slot fade. That was a thing of beauty off his back foot, like vintage Aaron Rodgers throw that, maybe a handful of guys in the league can make.
Probably two.
Right. Him and Mahomes.
Yeah.
Him and Mahomes. And then you saw him also on another 3rd down find Jimmy Graham. I thought it was, by the way, I do think it was a bad spot. I do think he was probably a little short, but, revisionist history, whatever, it is what it is. The Packers move on, and I think they were going to win that football game regardless if the Seahawks got the ball back or not. But when it comes to this game, Aaron Rodgers has a chance. And, with great quarterbacks, and I've heard this argument against Aaron Rodgers throughout most of his career, is that, he hasn't had enough help. He's had a trash defense. He hasn't had a running game, yada, yada, yada. Okay, I'm looking at this, and the Niners, they are better on paper. They have a better roster. They have a better defense. And I think they have a better coach in Kyle Shanahan. But He has a running game. He does have a defense. Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith made life a living hell on Russell Wilson last week. They do have enough on defense to be competent and get some stops. It's Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to hear the excuses anymore. If you're the baddest man on the planet and you're still that dude, go into San Francisco, go get a win, and go get your second berth to the Super Bowl in your career, because you've been waiting a long damn time and you've had plenty of people make excuses for you. Now you got an opportunity. You got a roster that can compete. You be the difference maker. That's what I want to see from Aaron Rodgers.
You know what? And I couldn't have said that better myself, Tater, because I'm being, I hate to kind of bring it back to but I want to be biased here. People have always said that he's been the quote unquote greatest talent that they've ever seen at quarterback. And there's certainly a debate about that. He's certainly in that conversation, right? But I feel the exact same way. Let's stop making excuses for this guy. And I don't want to cross sports here, but it's sort of like a LeBron James comparison, right? It's if you're the best player on the planet, if you want to go down as one of the greatest to ever do it, these are the games that you go and win. And it's just as simple as that. You show up, you go in, and you win. The greatest quarterbacks, they do this time in and time out. And he had one magical run there back about a decade ago. Where he got into the playoffs and it was magical to see. But since then, he's had MVP awards. He's had 13-3, 14-2 type of seasons, 50 touchdown type of seasons, but it hasn't worked out in the playoffs for whatever reason. And again, that's what I want to see from this game, and I think it may happen.
So I don't want to compare Aaron Rodgers to that of Peyton Manning. But sometimes I see some. Now, granted, they are completely different talents as far as what they can do physically and throws that they can make and so on and so forth. They're different when it comes to how they play the quarterback position. But when it seems as if Aaron Rodgers has had, like you mentioned, MVP accolades, he's got accomplishments and achievements in this league that very few ever experience. And your eyes tell you in certain games, he dominates. Like, people have had no answer at moments for Aaron Rodgers. But for some reason, that dominance in the regular season, similar to Peyton Manning, very rarely has transferred to the postseason. And it's sometimes it can be explained. Sometimes he has been playing with an inferior team to the point where he couldn't, individually overcome the odds.
Right.
But in some cases, he's just not shown up. And I thought that he made enough plays. I thought that Russell Wilson, to be honest with you, was the best quarterback in last week's divisional matchup. No disrespect. I thought Aaron Rodgers played a good game. But I thought the better quarterback was Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
He damn near took a team that was clearly outmatched and damn near stole a game at Lambeau Field.
So my impression of that, especially in the outcome, was that if Russell Wilson had 5 more minutes, I think he would have pulled out the victory.
Right.
And I completely agree with you on that one as well, especially down the stretch. Now, having said all of that, can Aaron Rodgers find that magic again this week? Because that's what's going to need to happen, right? I mean, he's going to I don't think Green Bay is going to go into San Francisco and blow out the 49ers. I don't think
they're not going to be able to impose their will and run the ball down their throat.
Right. It's going to have to be Aaron Rodgers finding that bit of magic, make your own luck type of plays and things of that nature. So I think that's what's going to have to happen. Can they hold off the Niners, though? Because let's bring it back that way, right? Let's talk about the Niners here, because you've got emerging young talent that's really fun to watch. And let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, right? I mean, again, he hasn't been, lights out spectacular, but he's been the right guy for the right job, if I could use a cliche. I mean, he's exactly what they need. He doesn't lose these games. He makes the throws when he needs to make the throws, and he relies on his defense to do the rest. And also a hell of a play caller, like you said, like Kyle Shanahan. I completely respect how he goes in the game and sort of, is sort of an amoeba, right? He sort of changes things. It almost seems like it's on the fly. Like it can be George Kittle one drive, it could be Raheem Mostert one drive, it could be Deebo Samuel one drive. He always seems to keep the offense ahead of the defense. I know that maybe sound dumb to say, but he's always ahead of it. And again, can Green Bay stop it, and can Aaron Rodgers find that magic down the stretch?
Well, one thing that Kyle Shanahan does that's absolutely brilliant, and this is with any great play caller, is they can turn your biggest strength into a weakness. And a lot of that, what I'm trying to get at is, with Za'Darius and Preston Smith, coming off the edges and generating a pass rush. I was mentioning, you brought me on your show earlier this week. What's the best way to slow down a pass rush and to keep a defense honest? It's to run screens and to run the football and then play action off of it, which you see that all throughout this Shanahan system.
Mm-hmm.
He screens you to death if you're going to try to blitz him or come after him and, like hell bent on a pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he'll throw tight end screens to Ross Dwelly if he sees it as something that he can exploit a weakness on you.
Right. So and that's what we're talking about here, because again, it doesn't. The offense doesn't rely on one guy. And of course you want every offense to be that way, right? What NFL team doesn't want that? But again, he's always finding that one weakness, that one spot. Again, whether it's, Kittle or Mostert or anybody else in that lineup. And I don't know if Green Bay is going to have the talent to cover it all.
It was Kendrick Bourne last week.
You're right. Exactly. That was the name I was trying to think of.
Yeah, I mean, there's Deebo Samuel, Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, they're all malleable parts, and they're schemed in properly by, I think, the best play caller in all of football. No disrespect to Sean McVay or any other gifted offensive coordinator mind in the NFL, but to me, Shanahan is far and away the best play caller, because we saw even this offense last year, even though they didn't have quite the, they didn't have Jimmy Garoppolo under center, but they still had games where they put up points. And how the hell do you think that happens with Nick Mullins under center or some shit like that? I mean, it's again, no disrespect to any other play caller, but Garoppolo, he's had his moments though where if he needs to win a shootout, I mean, he went into New Orleans and dropped 48 on the New Orleans Saints in that building.
Right.
So he's fully capable of having big games when you need him to. But I do agree that the one thing that could bite the 49ers here, and it didn't last week because I thought that Garoppolo played a pretty good game. He did have one interception that he threw by, I think it was Kendricks, who got underneath like a play action, and they tried to hit a little, short post route. But outside of that, Garoppolo didn't really have to do all that much. I mean, 11 of 19 for 131 through the air. I mean, it was pretty pedestrian. They leaned on that defense, which they did that when they played the Green Bay Packers back on November 24th. I mean, 20 pass attempts. I mean, he get 253, and he had one that was a 61-yarder, but 2 scores through the air. But again, it's all built off that play action and being able to keep an opposing defense off balance. Like you mentioned, though, every game is different. I'm interested to see what the adjustments are on the defensive end for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I really am, because again, they're going to have to, at least in my opinion, play disguise as well. They're going to have to make their looks, completely different in the outcome, and that's going to be the key for Green Bay. Can they confuse Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan to an extent? Obviously, can they confuse that offensive game plan to just keep them a little bit off balance? Because again, if I think this is another game that if you try to get into a shootout with the San Francisco 49ers, it's not going to happen as well, because they're able to drop 48 or 50 points on you. Just go ask the New Orleans Saints from earlier this year. So it's going to be interesting. There's going to be, I think, Preston Smith, he could be that unsung hero for a Green Bay, right? He can be that guy that could maybe get a strip sack or a fumble or something like that. It's going to have to be one of those game-changing type of plays that Green Bay defense is going to need, because I think you're going to have to force a couple of turnovers, obviously, to keep close in this game. So can they make that impact play also on defense to help Aaron Rodgers? Because, again, the offense doesn't have enough to keep up with the Niners offense, not in my opinion anyway.
It's more so I think if you take the blueprint of, for example, like the Tennessee Titans, if you take what they did well, which was turn over Lamar Jackson, get them playing from behind. I mean, not to say that Garoppolo, like we said, has shown up in moments, but he really didn't have to do much against the Minnesota Vikings. And we're going to have to – I want to see if they can get – if the Packers can get out in front and have to make Jimmy Garoppolo make throws, I'm interested to see how he responds. And that's where we're harking back to a quarterback. If you can make this to where it's either Garoppolo or Aaron Rodgers that has to make a play, make it a one-possession game late, and turn Garoppolo over once or twice, which they can do, and Garoppolo will throw you a couple twice a game. If they can do that, Packers definitely have a chance, and that's the recipe for an upset. But like I said, I want to see Aaron Rodgers, if he's still that man. I want to see him go into San Francisco, and with a team that on paper isn't as good but has a chance, you be the difference maker. That's what I'm hoping I see this upcoming Sunday, as we have not only the AFC Championship game but the NFC Championship game coming your way. Go ahead, if you're taking a listen to us right now, whether it's live or whether you're joining us however you digest your podcast, namely on iHeartRadio. Drop us a review, subscribe, as we're going to be coming at you here on the Go Route every single week with NFL news and notes as we head into the offseason. But, of course, we have one more game after this week.
Yep.
The granddaddy of them all. From Keith Jackson. The Super Bowl. But do you have a points prediction for this game for the Niners and Packers?
Oh, boy. Like I said earlier, I think it's within 3 points, Tater. I want to.
Well, I may have lost you right there for a second, so my apologies, Jay. Or maybe it's my internet that's acting up a little bit. Uh-oh. Jay, can you hear me? May have lost you there for a second, pal. Uh-oh. Babe, did our internet go out?